Thank you, everyone, for joining me today. My name is Sean Shaw, and you're listening to Vanguards of Democracy. As a reminder, this is a pre-recorded episode, so I won't be able to take questions. Next week will also be pre-recorded, so I won't be able to take questions, but I will be back in the studio live on November 20th, so you will get to talk to me then. All the faithful callers, I hope you'll call in. Now, before I get carried away, I want to take a second right now to congratulate my good friend and fraternity brother and recent guest of the show, the mayor-elect of St. Petersburg, Florida, Ken Welch. He succeeded in winning the heart of St. Petersburg in the recent election. Not only was he the best person for the job, he also made history as the first African-American mayor in the history of St. Petersburg. Back to today's guests, though. I'll be sitting down with Vincent Dolan of Swope Redance to look at one of the strongest resources on the internet for victims of spinal cord injuries. That's spinalcord.com, and all that it hopes to deliver to people in need. But first, I'm here with Joe Hamilton, publisher of the St. Pete Catalyst, co-founder of the St. Petersburg Group, a partner of Seed Funders, and host of St. Pete X. We'll talk about each of these projects, so stay tuned and let's get started. All right, welcome here with Vanguards of Democracy. I'm Sean, and I'm here with Joe Hamilton. Joe, thanks for coming in this morning all the way from St. Pete. I'm excited to talk to you today. You're the publisher of the St. Pete Catalyst, co-founder of the St. Petersburg Group, a partner at Seed Funders, and host of St. Pete X. That's a lot of stuff going on, and you have a local interview podcast, so I'm going to be picking your brain to see what we could do better here, but you got a lot of stuff going on, so I appreciate you coming in this morning, man.
It's my pleasure, Sean. Thank you.
What inspired you to create all the ventures that you have going on today first?
Yeah, I don't know if inspiration's the right word. It just seemed like opportunity, and a silly way to say it: if you saw, something, $100 bill sitting on the ground, would you not bend over and pick it up? And I don't mean to use money as the
Right.
the main thing, but just opportunity, and then what you'll find is just what I found as I started engaging with opportunities is that you started to be able to sort of cross pollinate opportunities too, and so especially like once the catalyst started taking off, all those additional things that we could do that maybe helped place make St. Pete or whatever, but also became good content for the catalyst, and they fed each other back and forth, and by putting them on the catalyst, then they could grow themselves. And so really it's just it seems to be an exercise in just triaging the best opportunities, because once you get moving in the right direction, they seem endless.
Well, that leads to my next question. Why do you believe local journalism is so important?
Um, well, the main reason I believe local journalism is so important, it may actually be a little bit surprising. I think that what social media did when they stole most of the attention away from local journalism is that they locked people into what I call a national ideology mindset, right? And you think of Facebook as, oh, this is my community on Facebook. But then if you dig in a little bit, how many of your neighbors are you friends with on Facebook? And the answer is usually not very many, one or two at most. And Nextdoor came along and sort of exploited that, and now they have a pretty valuable company. I think they just went public at $4 billion. But what ends up happening on Facebook is people organize around the people they're friends with, and those people tend to think like them, and then that whole algorithm and the whole thing exacerbates that. And so a lot of the divisiveness comes from just simply sitting in that mindset for such an inordinate amount of time. If you went to church for 7 days a week for 8 hours a day and came out of that, you'd be a very churchy person, right? And the other would be the people that weren't that way. If you listen to Buccaneers AM radio 8 hours a day for seven days a week and you came out, you would be a very Buccaneers person, and it'd be almost hard to sometimes assimilate with people who weren't as passionate about the Bucks. And so I think what local news does is gets us to put a different hat on. It gets us to put a local hat on and be in a local mindset where our kids go to the same parks and we drink the same water and we listen to the same noises, and we swim at the same beaches. And the more time we can spend in that mindset, I think, is a really important hedge against spending all of our time in an environment that's really tied to national ideologies.
You are, this is really interesting. You are essentially voicing what my next campaign is going to be.
All right.
Talking about exactly what you talked about and common things that bring us together rather than the kind of the divided nature of our politics these days. And I think you're exactly right. I notice on my own social media, all I'm doing is talking to people that think like me, and your friends think like you. And so when you constantly are in that echo chamber, you get more and more and more and more entrenched into where you are, and then everyone else believes something different than you, and here we are. And you're exactly that is a really cool answer, that these local issues, because this is a ism that we always use in politics. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican, you want your trash picked up, and you want your parks to be open, and you want your local library to be, and that's not a D or an R issue. You just want that stuff in your local area. But when you start getting higher into politics, we all get crazy. But that's a really interesting answer, and I think you're exactly right. What are some of the stories that you were able to cover that maybe a larger media outlet wouldn't be able to, as a corollary to that first question I asked you?
Sure. And as we started the Catalyst, we were really looking to innovate and experiment because we knew local news was in trouble. And so part of our mission was to, how can we look at some of the things that have worked with social, crowdsourcing journalism? How can we kind of broke them down into different vehicles where we have just our journalists covering stories, and then we have what I call content vehicles, which are really cool features. Like we have the Hustle on the Catalyst, which is a great showcase for small businesses or solopreneurs or artists, and it's this thing they can just fill out themselves. It's like a self-interview self-interview with 9 questions, and that allows them to be the content creator, but we give them a little help in getting there by just giving them the questions to plug into. And then we have a whole community voices section where we really try to get folks to do something a little bit different than op-eds, but actual informative articles. They don't have the exact bounds of journalistic impartiality or whatever. So with all of that, we've been really flexible. We had talked even before we started recording about My Mayor, which was a really cool series, and it kind of, is a good example of our freedom, and where, we were able to have all 8 candidates come in and do pretty much a long form interview as much time as they wanted to spend. And we, our angle was the person behind the policy. So we were asking, I call them kind of Cosmo quiz questions, who are people that influence you, and
Right.
and things like that. And then over the course of 10 weeks, or actually 15 episodes we end up doing, you get to build a relationship with that person because you're listening to them talk about themselves, and we're hitting all different angles, from people who inspire them to qualities they think are important. And they can work the policy stuff in there as needed, but you kind of get enough of that from the other places. So the kind of stuff that we do at the local level, which serves the purpose of building the community because you're connecting with the people in your community, also being a little bit alternative kind of information in the way we do it, and even the format of doing video and audio as well, and being able to to pack that into this online platform.
I mean, I think you learn a lot more about a candidate for office doing what you're doing rather
Yeah.
than rather than the 10 minutes of what is the exact, probably, and we all start sounding alike. There's very little difference usually in candidates after a while, right? Everyone says the same thing in the debates. It's just how loud you say it. Everyone says the same, we all sound alike. But when you start asking about influence, and you start asking about background and what got you to where you are right now and why you're doing this and who's important to you, you start getting into a person's values and to a person's motivations. And I think that's really what people want to see, particularly in times like this. They want to get behind the policy stuff, and they want to see what makes a person.
And I think that represents a big overarching change in how people are open to receiving information, because the old school way of doing journalism was everybody has opinions, right? And the professional aspect was I push those down and just do this work, right? But as the stakes got higher and social media changed this, you know, actual expertise became almost as important as impartiality, because people stopped believing that people were actually impartial, right? So if you look at all that news outlets right now, pretty much everybody has them mapped onto one side of the spectrum, and there's very few, maybe NPR or something, that might even still even remotely be in the middle. And so what that has done is flipped sort of the value system to quality of information, quality content, which of course plays into how much content there is out there. And so what we've learned is, we can go get that retired engineer, and if we give him the right way, the right path to share his knowledge, and he can talk about coastal high hazard, then that content is rare and different than it would have been, because it's not filtered through a generalist journalist who won't have that expertise. But people are willing to listen to him talk and hear his information, knowing that he's just a civilian and may have an opinion, but the quality of his information is more important now.
No, that's people are yearning for that, because they don't trust the media. Whether that's another podcast we can probably do, but you're right. It's not. It's been kind of packaged as impartial, and everyone has their opinions where they are on the political spectrum, and people gravitate to the one. I don't watch Fox. I mean, I don't, but it's because of my political ideology. But I also get much of my news from print online. I don't watch the news because I don't want to have to even filter my stuff through an opinion through someone that even agrees with me. I want it kind of as unbiased as possible. You hit on a little bit. Let's talk about your mayor's race a little bit. Last night I was in St. Petersburg. It was a wonderful night. Ken Welch, who's been on this show a few times, became the mayor-elect of St. Petersburg, first African-American mayor of St. Petersburg. What a story. What a life trajectory Ken has lived, and we were all just so proud to be there. There were several Tampa people that went over across the bridge, and just the excitement of that night and the bipartisan excitement of that night was evident as we were there, and it was a celebration, and my was I glad to be there. But I know that you've done your series. What was the title of it? My Mayor series. But I want to ask you, you're in a unique position to answer this. What were the issues that drove the St. Pete mayor's race? What were the issues that people were talking to you about that were important to them?
Well, the number one issue was affordable housing. That's
the first thing you mentioned.
Yeah, that's it. And it's a tough problem because, the people that are building the houses, are not going to do it for no profit. And so there has to be some way, to find a way for them to be able to get profit. So affordable housing was one. I think coming through the pandemic, steady leadership was important, even though I don't think it was talked about enough. I think that there was, it's one of those things that's a little bit ethereal, right? So you don't talk about steady leadership, but people are, a little bit worn down and just
a little bit.
Yeah. But I mean, we're coming out the other side of it now. But I think just knowing that type of thing can happen in a community, I think there was you wanted that a steadiness, and I don't know that. I mean, Ken is obviously steady, and Robert has his own variation on being steady as well. So those are kind of the things I think were important.
One thing I always pick up about St. Petersburg versus Tampa is how important the environmental climate issues are. They're important here, and we talk about them. But in St. Pete, they are, they're big time over there. Were people talking about those issues and red tide and?
Yeah, they were. It's tricky because this is to me, one of the weirdest parts about being mayor is that they come at you with, global problems, right?
Yeah.
And you're just the mayor of one small little.
And they don't want to hear. I'm just the mayor. I can't do it. That's not the answer.
I mean, the actual, when you look at all the impact America can make on a city, true climate change, they're going to make almost, very little, just local thinking, and we all have to do our part. But there are other issues that they can actually make massive impacts, and some of those do leak into, leak into the environment, which is sort of our infrastructure, and and things like that, and making those decisions. So,
and to your point, affordable housing is one of the issues that a mayor can have a huge impact on.
That's right. Yeah.
Because you're left to their own devices, the developers aren't going to do it as we would want them to do it. Let's just say that. And they got to be pushed a little bit, whether it's incentives, whether it's just being pushed, and you got to strike that right balance.
Yeah. And a big piece of that will be leveraging how just incredibly hot St. Pete is right now. The mayor has the chips. And so, he can say, yeah, we'd love to have you here. We want 100% small retail on the ground, because that's where our city, that's where the vibrancy of our city is represented through the small shops and artists, and and even smaller, like even little 500 square foot shops, mix those in there so that anybody can have a chance to have a business there, and then and carving out some affordable housing, and some of the solutions now are making it market rate, but just making them smaller, right? Because some people will say, I'll take a little smaller place so that the numbers all still work, and I still get to be in the place I want to be, because location is where the value is to them more than the size. So that's going to be a big key. Is just we're in a really hot spot. We really do call the shots now with the developers and just stepping up and doing that.
And I spoke to Ken about this. What South St. Pete is similar to what we have over here in East Tampa, which is kind of a economically depressed area historically. large African American population, and I was kind of asking him the same thing I asked Tampa politicians: how do we get around this? How do we improve this? How do we deal with this? It's been a problem that's existed for a long time. We're not going to solve it tomorrow, but we got to have some sustained attention to it. And I know that was an issue that he obviously was on his mind. What are you most excited about that's currently going on in your community?
Well, I will talk about a personal project if that's
Yeah.
right. Actually what I'm spending most of my time on right now is a concept called Meta City, and essentially it's taking all that I've experienced in the 3 years of building the Catalyst, and what the opportunities are again, and how I think that getting a real idea meritocracy and all fed into this really deep communication network could be hugely valuable in sort of recoalescing community. And so we're working on building that right now. At the core of it is the news, which is the reason people show up. But then our plan is to build tools and give every neighborhood association a newsletter tool, give every artist a gallery in the Meta City, give high schools a news platform.
Meta City exists on the net.
Yes,
Okay,
it's
okay.
sort of we call it a virtual operating system
Okay.
for a physical city. So it's really fenced around. So it'll be St. Pete.metacity, and everything in that metacity will overlay St. Pete and connect to St. Pete, and then Tampa would be its own. And so as you give the schools these tools to bring back their sports reporting, because the Times isn't able to do that anymore financially, but again takes some of the innovations that social media have brought, and now by giving an artist a free gallery, they just get value, right? So it's giving value, and they can put their art up, and then people can mint an NFT out of that online gallery. And say someone writes someone in a neighborhood association writes a great piece on walkability or something. Historically, that'd be just contained to that email blast, right? That goes out to their neighborhood. Now it'll still do that because we've given them that tool, but it might earn the right to go out to all the people who follow Katie, who wrote it, all the people who follow the neighborhood, and it performs well there. Then it can go out to more of a citywide best of neighborhood writing, and if it performs well there, then it can actually go out in our daily edition. So just what would have been a self-contained idea in a neighborhood now has the opportunity to really spread to the entire community if it earns its the right
No,
to
that's
do
cool.
that.
That's similar to how all your other projects are feeding on themselves. Good stuff, man. I want your thoughts, if you can, your perspective on the uniqueness of Tampa and St. Pete, and then the Tampa Bay area. Like, kind of, what are your thoughts on what makes Tampa unique or sets it apart from St. Petersburg?
Well, I don't know Tampa super well. I can tell you that St. Pete has a very just wherever competition is, we're the opposite of it. To say collaboration is almost an understatement. Is a genuine community wide, just collective earnestness to do good things. As far as I've come, I just rolled into town with a dream essentially, right? And what I've been able to build, I feel like I might have gotten crushed in a lot of other cities, but here I got supported, and as long as you deliver value, and you give value, then the world is open to you in St. Pete, and I think that is not the norm. I think it's a really special place for that.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. What are some ways that we can make St. Pete and maybe the Tampa Bay region more attractive for people to visit and move here and live here and thrive here?
Well, right now I think that's specifically blockchain. That's a big part of the MetaCity concept. Kathy Wood.
Blockchain is
So blockchain is you've heard of cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
It's the underlying
We're
technology.
gonna get there too.
Okay.
Because I need my crypto advice.
Yeah. It's about, that is going to be the emerging technology that drives the next 10 years of all the big stuff that happens. And Mayor Suarez has done a fantastic job of capturing
Miami, right?
Miami, yeah, sorry, Miami. He calls himself the capital of capital, and he's attracted a lot of the real big money. But we've been able to draft off him, and I think there's still some areas. I'd love to see St. Pete, because of its artsy roots, go after the NFT. Be the leading destination for NFT creation. We've talked about cheap, finding affordable energy, alternative energy to attract miners, the crypto miners here. But really drafting off of having our flavor as sort of a hedge or a juxtaposition of what Miami is, and that's what brought Kathy Wood here from Ark Invest. Was she said, I could go to Miami and and just bang heads with all of these folks. But here I can come and I feel like I'm in a warm place where I can build stuff and really express myself. And and that's what attracted her.
Let's get there. Let's
Okay,
get into
all right.
crypto now.
Yeah.
Again, I'm going to ask you if you can explain a little bit what blockchain is. And you said NFT, and this is kind of for the benefit of the audience.
Sure,
Explain those concepts, and then I want to get into the actual crypto because we're hearing a lot of different things,
Of course,
about crypto, and I want to hear it from you.
Sure. So, what a blockchain is a public immutable ledger. It's a way to store information so everybody can see it. And what that does is, in certain instances, eliminates the need for trust. And so, one of the most common examples of that is they call it decentralized finance. Is they have I'll throw another term at you, a DAO, which is a decentralized autonomous organization. So essentially, it's a program that no one owns, that just runs itself. And a lot of people who have purchased Bitcoin in the past need cash, and so they don't want to sell their Bitcoin because they might have to have realized tax gains or whatever, or they just don't want to get rid of them because they think they're going to go up, and they just want to stay in that position and not have to deal with the cash in and cash out. And wealthy folks have done this with art a lot in the past. They'll say, I have this piece of art that I paid 25 grand for, now it's worth 500 grand, and I'd love to pull some money out on that, but I don't want to sell it and pay those taxes or lose the art. And so, I can say I'm looking for yield. I can go to the bank and get nothing, right? Or I can put it in this protocol, and people will come and say, I'm going to put my Bitcoin in this protocol, and I'm going to take out 60% of the value of the Bitcoin as a cash loan at a very reasonable interest rate of like 5%. And so they go do their thing, and they pay back their loan, and they get their Bitcoin back. And the person who put the cash in just to give that person withdrew now gets the benefit of that interest. So it essentially lets anybody be a bank, right? It lets you collectively put your money into this protocol and earn a yield on it, and do essentially what made the banks wealthy historically. So it democratizes a lot of functions of finance, because you have this trusted, where the bank would have been there as the trusted third party, to facilitate that happening. Now people can do it sort of peer to peer through this blockchain intermediary, that takes the trust out of it. You don't know who.
And that's complicated, but I appreciate that because I want people to hear this, because you hear about crypto and the crypto world, either it's the future, or it is the riskiest thing you could ever do, and you shouldn't touch it. Those are the two various things. I want to hear from you. What are the risks and advantages of crypto?
So one important thing to understand with cryptocurrency is the worst name ever, because it's not actually currencies. It's not, there are a few like the meme ones you hear about a lot, like Doge coin. Those are just sort of kind of fun things over here. What almost all cryptocurrencies are really like crypto shares, stocks. Almost a better way to think about it is stocks, because they're usually attached to a project. So, for example, I am really active in this new blockchain-based domain name system, which will open up the domain names. So where there was only the .coms and the nets before, now you can make your own .whatever, and then you own all the things in front of that dot. So you could have resume or law.sean or whatever, and you would own .sean. And there's a token that sort of facilitates buying and selling of those, and so that token has value, and it does relate to to the dollar or to the Bitcoin, and it does move up and down. But when you use that token, it actually has a utility. It's the utility of acquiring these domain names, it exists to service the project. The whole idea of creating a value in this token exists to service the project of building this new naming system. And so most cryptocurrencies are actually investments in projects, right? And some of them fail and some of them don't. I mean, if you look at, going to put my seed funders hat on, 10% of startups make it to 5 years, so 90% fail. And so crypto kind of, it follows that as well. Where you get a little bit, you depart from that is when you get these, newsworthy Dogecoin things, because Elon Musk is tweeting, and those things go up and down. But almost, to me, those are almost like Beanie Babies, right? Those are just sort of just a weird collectible thing that just fun people are getting into for entertainment more than anything. And some people have made a lot of money on them, but some people made some money on Beanie Babies too.
What's Bitcoin? What's it tied to?
Yeah, so Bitcoin, Bitcoin is almost in the same mindset. Its purpose is to store value. So whereas this coin over here, this token, its purpose was to facilitate this project, Bitcoin's purpose is to store value. So that's why it's often called digital gold. And why that happens is because it's a deflationary item, in that there was 21. The algorithm locks it to 21 million Bitcoin. There will never be more. And in fact, that number is decreasing because one thing with crypto is it's yours, right? And if you have it on a thumb drive and the dog eats the thumb drive, that's gone.
I've
Right?
heard the stories, man.
So yeah, and you hear people like who threw away their laptop with
don't have the password for
that's
it.
Right.
Can't
That's right. Yeah. So actually, then the number of Bitcoin will only go down as people mishaps happen or whatever. And so even with gold, if the price of gold goes up, you can actually increase mining, right? And so the price of gold isn't truly static, but Bitcoin is, and it's completely you don't have to carry it anywhere. You don't have to carry 2 tons of gold anywhere. So its purpose is to be sort of the modern version of gold, in that it's a locked amount, easily transferable, easy to secure, put in your pocket on a thumb drive or whatever, and you don't have to guard gold bricks, and that's its purpose. It's simply a store of value.
And how would people find out more about crypto and investing in Bitcoin and all the kind of cool things you've talked about? Where is a source that people can go to and kind of start learning more about it?
Well, YouTube is all things, all the answers in the universe to me are on YouTube. So you do have to wade through, some of the the weird stuff. Coin Bureau is a guy who's very accessible. He's kind of fun, but his information is good. So it's a good sort of foray in. But then you start looking at the guys behind the actual protocols. Ethereum, Vitalik Buterin is out there writing all the time, and Charles Hoskinson from Cardano, you can hear it straight from the horse's mouth, and they go deep, right? But Coin Bureau is a good one. I would just do a search on 10 most trustworthy YouTube crypto people and just start watching the videos.
I mean, I have some Ethereum, Cardano,
Ada,
and Bitcoin.
yeah.
That's kind of
those
where
are
I
the top
am.
three.
One of my buddies who's into this world said, if you want to get an introduction, go there. But it's complicated stuff, and I know, again, like you will see the old guard establishment banker type people that say put all your money in stocks, don't do this is weird, and then you look on the news and you see this guy made $1 million last night on Dogecoin. You're like, oh my god, and you want to be somewhere probably in the middle and know yourself what risk tolerance you have and you're comfortable with.
I mean, at this point, it needs to be in your portfolio somewhere, right?
I think
it's
so.
Just a little bit, and Bitcoin's the safest. It will have its bumps, but it's long term, it would be hard to see that go anywhere but up.
And you were talking about mining, and what's the crypto mining? What is that exactly?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, what a blockchain is a giant immutable ledger that's shared amongst computers. So everybody has a copy of it, and there has to be some mechanism for verifying the transactions, verifying they're legit. One of the big problems that mining solves is double spend. So if I have 100 Bitcoin and I send you 100 and I send someone else 100 at the same time, how do I not get away with that, right? Because I only had 100. How can I not spend it twice? And so mining is the collective process of verifying transactions. And there are a couple mechanisms for doing that, which I won't get into, but essentially you just run computer algorithms to do that verification. And whoever successfully does that verification first wins. The protocol actually gives it an award of some of those coins for doing that service for the whole network, and that's it. So it's basically just verifying the transactions.
And I mean, from what I've seen, these sometimes are rooms full of computers, running these algorithms to get a little bit at a time. But you start pooling this.
Yeah, so one of the big just because I think it'll be interesting is the energy consumption, right? And so the Bitcoin uses what's called proof of work, and so proof of work is a really difficult algorithm, and the algorithm actually can get more difficult because they want it to take about 10 minutes. 10 minutes is about enough time for them to make sure that double spend doesn't happen and to verify properly. So actually, as you get more miners in with faster computers, they just make it harder, so it still takes 10 minutes, right? But the problem with that is, not the problem, but the concern that people have is that it's a big race. And so all these computers are racing and using this energy to do these algorithms, and then someone wins it and they get the reward, but all the other people get nothing, and they just wasted that energy. And then it all starts again every 10 minutes, right? So then the next iteration of that, which Ethereum is working on and Cardano was started in, is called proof of stake. And there, instead of proof of work, which is I'm giving my resources to prove I'm legit and real, you can put you actually stake the currency. It says, here's how I'm vouching that I'm going to do a good work for you. And then they actually, almost like each coin you put into stake and say, if I screw up, you can take this from me, gives you like one ticket. And then almost like a drawing, they pick one ticket randomly and say, okay, you won, you get to verify this block. And that means that only one computer is doing that work. They're still doing that same work to verify it, but then all those other computers don't have to do that, and you save that energy. So
no, this is fascinating. I mean, we've had financial advisors on here, and we've had other people. One of the themes of this show is going to be finance, wealth, and I just want to make sure our listeners kind of get a peek into this world and are understanding what goes on behind this kind of wealth creation, new currency type deal. So now I'm going to do some crypto stuff, but I appreciate you coming, man. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean.
Thanks. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Sean here again, and I'm here with one of my colleagues at the law firm, and also I just remembered in the football fantasy league with me, and I don't know how he's doing, but I don't want to ask because I ain't doing good, so we're not going to talk about that. But I'm here with Vincent Dolan. Vinny, thank you for being here. You are the executive director of Spinalcord.com, and so we're going to talk about that a little bit, but I just want to tell everybody that's watching and listening, Vinny wears a lot of hats here at the firm. He is an integral part of all the good stuff we do here, so I'm thankful that he's on the show with us, and we're gonna get into one of the hats he wears, and that is as executive director of Spinalcord.com. So tell us, what is Spinalcord.com?
Yeah, I mean, I do wear a lot of hats, and I appreciate you having me on here, but Spinalcord.com is probably what I'm most passionate about. It's what I spend most of my day working on, and it is a resource-based website for individuals and families that have had a spinal cord or other catastrophic injury. So it includes all kinds of resources, blogs, podcasts, things like that, that talk about life after spinal cord injury. It gives them insight into what they can see. But more importantly, it connects them with the resources they need to move forward. And those resources can be things like support groups, activity-based therapy centers, or the best rehabs around the country. Because when a spinal cord injury in particular hits, families are left scrambling. The goal is, hey, is my loved one going to live? And that can last for hours, or days, or weeks. And during that time, people aren't getting information. They don't know what to do. It's just a focus on, how do I live? They hear things, doctors tell them things, but it goes in one ear and out the other. And at some point, people come out of this haze and they start realizing, what does all this mean? What have I been told? What is a C-level injury? The doctor said my loved one isn't going to walk, but what does all that mean? And so we want to make sure that we connect them with those resources to help them.
How'd you start this, and why'd you start this?
It's a good question, and it started as a bit of a passion project by the founders of Swope Rodante. That law firm that I also work with has had individuals that are paralyzed as clients for almost 40 years. And so in that time, they've become experts themselves in paralysis. So they become these warehouses of information. And what they wanted to do is take that information they've learned, the resources, the connections, and they wanted to put that all together for their client to take with them when they're no longer clients, but also because within that SCI community, which is very tight knit, they were getting phone calls and inquiries from other friends that weren't clients. They were getting calls from people that could never be a client, but wanted resources and information. And they were referred there because those lawyers were the experts. But the lawyers don't have time to be, they want to, and they give their time, but they said, we need to figure out a way to get this information out there to these people. And maybe other people could use it as well. So they just said, hey, what do we do with it? What do you do in today's day and age? You build a website and you just kind of put it out there. And from there, it kind of blossomed and it mushroomed into this resource that became really a nationwide resource for people around the country.
What do you do to keep the website as up-to-date and authoritative as possible?
To keep it authoritative, we bring in doctors. We have a lot of doctors that help write or review our content, and we have experts in the SCI community. So I'm always meeting with different rehab facilities and different individuals with paralysis that are running nonprofits and doing things and learning what's new in the SCI community, but more importantly, what are the updated connections? Who are the players? Where are the rehab facilities? Did one reopen in upstate New York? Is there a new one in Southern California? And so that's really what we do. Is it's just a matter of staying in touch with the SCI community, and that's kind of a theme that you'll probably hear me talk about is the SCI community because it's very tight knit. Because people, it's not a community anyone wants to join.
Yeah.
It's not a website anyone ever wants to get
I
to.
hear you. Yep.
And so when you become a part of that community unwillingly, you yourself become an expert, and you get to that point where you realize, hey, I want to share that information. And so for me, again, it's all about bringing people into that community, introducing them and making those connections.
What is the profile of the typical person that's coming to visit spinalcord.com or reaches out to you through the website?
So it varies. I talk to people who have been, who have a loved one that are injured within a day. And I talk to people that have been injured for 30 or 40 years. But most people I talk to are caretakers and family members who've had a loved one that have been injured within the last 3 months or so. And they get to a point where they're realizing, they're being discharged home and they're thinking, what do we do now? What are the next steps? And they find themselves just like anyone else researching and looking online and typing things out and trying to take in as much information as possible. And so they reach out to me and I have to tell them, hey, at the end of the day, you could research for days on end on the internet. But if I can connect you with someone else that has an injury, if I can connect you with a spouse or a parent, and we can make that connection, you're going to sit down, have a cup of coffee with them or a glass of wine or a beer, and you're going to learn more in an hour or two talking to them about things that are going to help your life moving forward than you will spending days on our website or any other one. And so that is the connection. That's the message that I give to people is that there's hope because people call and they're really, it's upsetting. No one knows what to expect. And one thing I'll point out that is kind of frustrating for the SCI community is people that call in are told their loved one's never going to walk again. They're told everything they can't do. And that is just depressing and it's frustrating. But what they aren't told is that it is possible in some instances for them to make progress and for their recovery to exceed what those initial expectations are. Doctors are trained and doctors are great. And the specialists that we have in the field are fantastic. The research being done is excellent, but they're basically, they fall back on this idea that whatever recovery someone gets within the first 6 months or a year is typically the advice given is that's it. That's the maximum. And what I tell people is it doesn't have to be. One other passion project of mine is on the board of directors at a paralysis recovery center called Next Step Orlando. And so I see those clients and I see them working their butts off 2-3 hours a day, 3, 4, 5 days a week, more than, most of us probably spend in the gym. And they're doing things they're told they never do. We're getting them standing up. We're getting them on a treadmill. And at the end of the day, we're getting them walking down a red carpet. And when I'm able to tell that to someone whose loved one is laying there and has been told, you're never going to do anything. And, you have to be careful because it is possible in some instances, no matter how hard you work, that they're not going to make the progress that they want to make. But when we can show them video and say, hey, this is someone who was told that they would never stand again, and they're taking steps down a red carpet. Now, they're not running a marathon. They're not running a sprint. They might have a walker. They might have a cane. They might be getting help from a trainer, but they're taking steps on their own. That is absolutely massive. And I mean, the number of people that hear that and they just realize what's possible. They're finally being told not what their loved one can't do or not what they can't do, but they're being told what's possible. That changes their view on life. And when we connect them with the right paralysis recovery center, with the right activity-based therapy center, that changes their life because they go from not knowing what to do, not knowing anyone in the community, to suddenly thinking, hey, if I work hard, then there's an opportunity maybe to improve my life. But also, they're introduced to other people in the community and they get to do things like social outings. They might have a happy hour or they might go to a dinner. And if you've ever, this is kind of a story that someone told me once, if you've ever been out with friends and you try and get a table for 8, you're told, that might take a while. You might have to wait an extra 15 minutes. It's tough. But if you go out to dinner with a bunch of friends and you're like, hey, we need a table for 10, but we need to be able to fit 5 wheelchairs and it needs to be accessible. We need to get around. That's
Yeah.
tough. But then when everyone gets together and they're sitting around and they're just talking and having a drink and doing their thing, they get to be themselves again. And so you have this idea of you're stuck potentially in this bed or in this wheelchair alone, not knowing anyone, and you're able to transition into, hey, I'm going to work out. I have a possibility to do things that I couldn't do before. Now I can go out, I can make friends. We can talk about it. We can laugh about things that no one else is going to understand. Because after an injury, what a lot of people don't realize is it's not just your body not being able to move, right? A spinal cord injury impacts your whole body and your nervous system. So you lose bowel, bladder, and sexual function. And that's a really tough thing for people to talk about. And you if you're injured, your friends will tell you, "Hey, you know what, buddy? We'll pick you up. We'll carry you into the bar. We don't care about those steps. We'll bring you wherever. We'll bring you up the stairs. We can get you wherever." But what can be difficult for someone who's newly injured, particularly, is to talk to their friends about saying, "Hey, I, I had an accident, or I need to go to the bathroom. I need a cath. I need to do this or that." So again, what we try to do is say, "Hey, let's connect with the community and let's change people's outlook and change their lives that way."
Based on what you just talked about, I think I know the answer to this question, but this is a tough subject, right? The website is your passion project. It is one that is built around a tragedy, but it is something you're passionate about, and it is useful and it is good. What are you most proud of? What makes you feel the best about this project?
It's the ability to save and change lives. And that sounds cliche, and it's something I never expect until I got involved with spinalcord.com and really got involved with the community. But um, we get calls from individuals, and I talk about the families that call. Um, but we get calls from people who are suicidal and who say things like, "I'd kill myself if I could." Um, and so they're the most difficult calls, and they don't always, we're not able to uplift everyone and give everyone hope. It's just not possible. But sometimes we do, and sometimes we're able to introduce people to things that they didn't know were out there. And it's weird that in this day and age, with the information is super high with the internet is, and people talk about all this information that's out there. Some people are somewhat locked in and don't have access to that information. They don't know what's possible, particularly early after an injury. And so being able to connect with people and change their lives, that far, far outkicks anything else I do in my daily life.
It far outkicks anything a lot of us do in our daily lives. I think a lot of us wish that as a part of our professional life, we got to touch people, we got to offer hope, and we got to speak to people and do the things that you're doing, Vinny. This is um, a lot of us wish we had this return on our professional life. This is, and I know you have some tough conversations. I know you have some sad conversations, and I know you have some uplifting conversations and some hopeful conversations. And if someone calls you and you are able to give them just a little bit of hope, I can imagine what that does for you as well. And so a lot of us wish that we had this segment to our professional lives rather than being on an Excel spreadsheet all day doing one column to the next, or
Yeah.
being on a Word document and drafting something all day. This is really profound, deep stuff. And it's sometimes people ask, what do we put on this earth to do? And things like this start to answer those types of questions, I believe. What's the biggest piece of advice you can give to these victims and the families, to kind of get through to the next day?
Yeah. The first thing that I would say is, hey, and most people in the SCI community would say this as well, is don't see yourself as a victim, and they don't. They don't. The term victim we don't like to use. Some people like to use survivor. There's other terms that are used, but we talk about, again, getting out there and trying. Okay. And that comes through in a lot of ways, because if you don't try, like anything else in life, if you don't try, you don't know what's possible. And so we talk about, let's try and get out there. Let's try and do that activity-based rehabilitation. Let's try aqua therapy. Let's try acupuncture. Let's try alternative pain management. Try it all and see what works for you, right? Try and put yourself out there and connect with the community. Try and go to that gym And maybe you'll like it, maybe you won't, because the activity-based therapy centers, these specialized paralysis recovery centers, like any other gym, they're different. Like myself, if I'm picking out a gym, I'm not going to go to Gold's Gym with my shirt off and try and pump iron. I'm not going to feel comfortable doing that.
Right.
I'm going to feel more comfortable at a U-Fit.
First of all, you shouldn't feel comfortable in any gym. Take it off your shirt. We're not video. I don't know if you've been to a gym lately. We don't do that, but go ahead.
So yeah, exactly. But it's just.
I hear you.
Anyway, you know what I'm saying. They're all different, and so you have to try and feel what's comfortable. And you might not. You might go to a social group, or you might like a wheelchair rugby. You might like basketball, but you might like none of it. And you might find that you want to be a gamer. So you might want to get back to gaming, and you get a quad stick, and you get a specialized controller, and you get back into gaming. But you try and figure it out, and try and find what works. And if you put yourself out there and try, then at least you'll know you did that. And so that's the advice that I give people.
In the words of Yoda, there is no try, there is do and do not. So to your point, that is kind of what you're talking about. Go do it.
Yep.
Go do it and figure out if you want to do something else. Let's get to some lighter stuff here, because I want to end on some things, because we're around the Thanksgiving season, and I want to ask you, because we're asking our guests this so we can put it together later. What are you thankful for, Vinny? What are you most thankful for around this season of giving thanks here that we're?
Ultimately, I'm thankful for my family and for my 2 kids, and for the twists and turns that life, has given me to bring me here. 15 years ago, I was ready to move back to Massachusetts, and planning on doing that, and planning on what's my law career going to look like there. And then I met a girl like weeks before I'm going to move back to Massachusetts, and I'm like, well.
Every man's life.
Yeah.
I met a girl,
and I'm like, I got to see what happens with this.
Yeah.
And now we're all these years later, and I got a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, and it couldn't be better.
That's awesome. Let me ask you this: other than the city we're in now, what's your favorite city in the United States?
That's Boston.
Yeah,
by far. I'm a
Boston's
Bostonian,
cool.
born and bred. Yep.
It's cool. Lobster rolls and everything. Let me ask you this, and this is going to be the final question, because I bet I have a sense of what you're going to say. What does it take for a person to be happy?
I think at the end of the day, I like to say that you can choose happiness, and that you might be given some difficult challenges, but if at the end of the day you can just say, I'm going to choose to be happy, despite all of this, despite all of what I've been, or the challenges I'm given, or the gifts that I'm given, I'm going to choose to be happy and deal with everything else as it comes. I think that's somewhat as simple as it comes.
I totally agree. It's one's outlook that determines kind of how you're going to be, and you can be positive, you can be negative. And the older I get, the more I'm trying to choose the positive in any situation, and it's a work in progress.
Yeah,
but we're getting there.
Yeah, it's not always perfect.
It's not always perfect.
You know.
I woke up Monday morning and realized I'd lost all my fantasy games, and it's okay. I woke up still feeling positive.
No, we're in the same boat.
Vinny, I want to thank you for being on here. Go to spinalcord.com if you want to kind of get some of the background Vinny was talking about today. I know we've got your picture here, Vinny, to go on the wall of fame. Oh. If you will sign it, that's a hell of a good picture, my man. If you will sign that for us, and we appreciate you joining us today.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. Vanguards of Democracy is funded and produced by Vanguard Attorneys, a local personal injury law firm serving the Tampa Bay area with ingenuity and an indomitable work ethic. Don't forget to follow Vanguards of Democracy on YouTube, or download episodes on your favorite podcast streaming services like iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And lastly, we're excited to announce that we're launching our new landing page, www.vanguardsofdemocracy.com, where you'll be able to ask questions, recommend guests or topics, and stay up to date with news and announcements. It'll be great. If you know how to bookmark a website, this is the one that'll make it worth it. Thank you.